Right now, you're having a visual perception of a computer screen, and you've got an audio sensation of my voice. You probably believe that there's really a computer in front of you. It's not just a hallucination or a dream. The computer isn't just in your mind. It's a material object in the external world. You probably think that the computer really has the shape, color, and other properties that you perceive it to have. But do you really know that there is a material object like that which is causing your perceptions? Could it be a dream or a hallucination or maybe an illusion created in your mind by a mad scientist or even by a powerful deceiving spirit of some kind? Rene Descartes, John Locke, and George Berkeley all give very different but penetrating answers to this question of the reliability of our sense perceptions. Do our sense perceptions accurately represent the external world of material objects to us? Let's split this up into two different questions. First, are our sense perceptions caused by material objects? And second, do our sense perceptions resemble their causes? How would you answer these two questions? It might seem like the sensible thing to do is to answer yes to both questions. In other words, you might want to affirm both of the following two claims. First, our sense perceptions are caused by material objects. Call this the causal thesis. And second, our sense perceptions resemble their causes. Call this the resemblance thesis. So, someone who holds this position thinks that the reason that he has a visual image of a red rubber ball is because there is a real red rubber ball out there in the world. And under the right circumstances, that ball produces a perception in his mind. That's what that blue line represents. So that's the causal thesis. His image of a red rubber ball is not simply a vision produced by an angel. It's not the dream or imagination of your own mind. Furthermore, someone who holds this position believes that his visual perception of the ball accurately represents the real ball that caused it. So he has a perception of red, and the ball is red. What he perceives is spherical, so the real ball must be spherical, and so forth. The perception of a red rubber ball isn't produced by a green squishy frog or by a palmetto tree swaying in the wind. So this is the resemblance thesis. In other words, the advocate of this position thinks that material objects are real and that his perceptions accurately represent those objects. So we can call the total position representative realism. Now, all three of our philosophers want to challenge this view in different ways. Here's a chart to summarize their basic positions. Let me briefly explain each of these. So Rene Descartes gives several skeptical arguments to show that we have no idea about the reliability of our sense perceptions. He's skeptical about both the causal thesis and the resemblance thesis. We don't know, he says, what causes our sense perceptions or whether our perceptions resemble those causes. First, he says that we have no way of telling dreams apart from waking life. It could be that all of our perceptions are dream images, not caused by the ordinary objects that we think we're perceiving at all. Second, he argues that there could be a powerful spirit, like God, who puts these perceptions into our minds, even though they don't resemble any real objects in the world. And third, he argues that if there is no God, then our perceptual faculties just emerged by chance or fate and are unlikely to be reliable guides to reality. So we just don't know anything about the causes of our sense perceptions. John Locke, on the other hand, rejects Descartes' skepticism. He argues that the best explanation for why we have sense perceptions is that they are caused by real material objects out in the world that produce them in our minds. So Locke is totally committed to the causal thesis, but he's only partially committed to the resemblance thesis. Locke thinks that our perceptions of size, shape, and number, what he calls primary qualities, really resemble the size, shape, and number of the material objects that cause them. But he denies that our perceptions of color, taste, and smell, or what he calls secondary qualities, resemble anything that really exists in the material objects that cause them. However, in spite of this qualification, it's still fair to call him a representative realist. George Berkeley is one of the weirdest and greatest philosophers we will study. Descartes was just skeptical about the causal thesis and the resemblance thesis, but Berkeley goes much farther and gives knockdown arguments against both of those theses. First of all, Berkeley argues that there are no material substances. The only substances that exist are minds. So the causal thesis is definitely false. Secondly, Berkeley argues that even if there were material substances that produced our ideas, they could not possibly resemble our ideas in any way. So he has an independent argument against the resemblance thesis. On Berkeley's view, our sense perceptions are produced in our minds by God, the divine mind. This sounds sort of like Descartes' skeptical worries about a deceiving God, but in Berkeley's view, there's nothing deceptive about what God does when he causes our perceptions. Berkeley's philosophy is a version of what's called idealism, since he thinks that the only things that exist are ideas and the minds that have them. So as we go through this unit, wrestle with these questions yourself. Should I trust my senses? Do I have any justification for my belief in material objects in the external world? Do you believe the causal thesis? Do you believe the resemblance thesis? If so, on what basis do you believe them? How would you respond to the arguments made by Descartes and Berkeley?